Chairman, we're now live.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Corporate Finance and Property Select Committee meeting. A warm welcome to those attending and to the viewers watching live on the Council's YouTube channel, which is Hillingdon, London. My name is Councillor Mills and I'm the Chairman of tonight's meeting. Details of the business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, copies of which are available to members in the room and also accessible online under the live broadcast. For those present in the room and intending to speak, please note that you'll be filmed and any statements you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder that today that when speaking, your voice will only be audible if the microphone is switched on, so please remember to do that and turn it off when you finish speaking. We're not expecting a fire drill today, so if the alarm does go off, please follow officers to the nearest fire exits out of the building and to the designated meeting points. Before we move on to the agenda, I'd like to introduce the councillors and officers present this evening. On my right-hand side, Councillor Tubadar, Councillor Lewis and Councillor Tuckwell, and on my left, Councillor Edgington and Councillor Bliss. From an officer's perspective tonight, we're joined by Ian Waters, Head of Finance, Financial Planning, Capital and Treasury and Systems, Richard Coomber, Energy Efficiency Officer, and Gary Pentecost, Head of Repairs, Engineering, Planned Works and Facilities Management, and our Democratic Services Officer is Liz Penny. This brings us on to the agenda for tonight's meeting, and agenda item 1 is apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor Vanessa Harangi and also from Councillor Raymond Graham, with Councillor Steve Tuckwell substituting.
Thank you very much, and thank you for substituting. Agenda item 2 is any declarations of interest in matters coming before this meeting? No, I see none, thank you. Agenda item 3 is the minutes of the previous meeting, so I just wish to point out that... oh, actually, no, sorry, that's on a further item. Anyone have any comments on those minutes? Councillor Edgington.
Yes, I realise it's been quite a short time since the last meeting, but I wondered whether we'd had any response to the first 3 resolution points on page 7 related to the transformation lead.
Yes, I have followed this up with the transformation lead, and she's still working on those responses. Unfortunately, I haven't got anything back just yet, Councillor, but I will obviously feed back to the committee as soon as I can.
Thank you.
With that noted, are we happy to agree those minutes? Thank you. Agenda item 4, this is to confirm that all items for us tonight are part 1 and will therefore be considered in public, and there are no part 2 items. Brings us on to agenda item 5, which is the draft budget proposals and the comments from the select committees across the council. The one thing I just wanted to point out to members here is a typo in terms of dates. On page 10, the Families, Health and Wellbeing Select Committee met on the 5th of January 2022, and that's the same typo at the top of page 12. It states 2021, but should be 2022. In terms of these recommendations before us tonight, you'll see the comment and the draft minutes from each of the various select committees with their review of the budget comments that were presented to them, including our own that were agreed at our last meeting and formalised offline through Democratic Services, myself and the Labour lead. These are here for us to note as the lead select committee, and these will now go into the budget for Cabinet. I think it's hard for us to comment on any of the comments made by other committees, given that we are not, some members were present in those, but as a committee we're not there. We just sort of accept what they've given and combine them with our own. On that basis, Councillor Edgington.
Yes, I take your point entirely, and I really wonder what the point is of us even discussing or having it on the agenda. I don't know why it just can't go straight from those select committees to Cabinet. It seems a waste of paper and time producing all of this. But
I think it's a valid comment, and I think Liz, we discussed briefly before. I think we'll take this back to Democratic Service and just understand whether there's a formal requirement for this, or if it's something that can be reviewed for future years. With that said, given that these are the recommendations for us tonight, happy to note those? Thank you. Agenda item 6 is energy efficiencies within the Civic Centre. So, Richard, Gary, thank you for joining us. Gary, I know you're a regular at this committee now with the property part within it. Thank you for preparing the paper. I know there's an addendum that was circulated. Ian, thank you. An addendum circulated to members that was sent by email, and also members should have hard copies of that this evening. But Gary, Richard, I'm not sure if you were going to talk, if you could talk us through, and then I'd open up to members for questions, if that's all right.
The papers gives a brief background on the systems employed, the heating and electrical systems employed in the Civic Centre. The background: building was built between 1974 and 1979, 2 phases. It is a very large building. We've tried to put, there's 700 single glazed windows in the building, which bring their own problems. We've got over 700 fan coils, which are under each of those windows in the main. We've got 4 large gas-fired boilers, 3 dedicated gas boilers with mechanical air supply systems. It's a general system designed and built in the 70s, so we've got a number of inefficiencies there. What we circulated the graphs to give a bit of an indication from the work we've undertaken over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, just to give the trend, really. We set our baseline in 2016-17 with the annual kilowatt usage, and we've got a projected target for next year, 2022-23. Generally, the annual consumption has been reduced by, as you can see, our trend from the graphical representation is starting to show a trend downwards, and the good area reduction is the CO levels, which are going the right way. What we've got is some of the works we've already undertaken are replacing LED lighting. It's been retrofitted. I think Richard's got some figures here. We've got over on the first phase 1, we fitted nearly 2,000 lights have been replaced with new LED fittings, and a lifespan of over 50,000 hours. So those benefits of the LED lighting will last for about 11 years in a building. There's a number of other initiatives that my teams, the technical teams, are trying to work with, preparing an additional paper to submit to Deloitte. So that's really about freewheeling all the initiatives and all the benefits that the market's starting to develop at the moment about how we can reduce energy and generate energy through, there's some of the ideas we had about walkways which can generate electric, like PV panels. So there's lots of good interventions underway. We've got sustainable ongoing maintenance costs for the borough. We've got a number of areas we're looking at, which are in the sustainable interventions paper being prepared by Deloitte, and that ranges from building fabric, improving the thermal capacity of the building, photovoltaics, installing PV in areas on certain parts of the building, ventilation systems. That could be a range from a full-blown integration, so it could range from small changes to a complete system replacement linked in with the heating and cooling system. So we're waiting for all that report to come forward. We've got, as I say, we've got a number of measures that we've already applied and we're looking at. But from our point of view, the success really is the CO reductions. I mean, Richard can give a little bit more detail on that. And one of the good, on the second graph, I think it is, the second graph about costs that we've avoided energy costs by the investment that we've made, which over the period is just over £500,000 of avoided costs. That's mainly attributed to some of the works, mainly the lighting and the other energy efficiency works. I think we've tracked down, you'll see on the graphs, so in 2019-20, we've got a little bit of a spike in our consumption. We're just trying to find a bit more detail about that, but it would appear to be some of the cooling systems were on at the time, which are quite a drain on electricity. Again, that's a little bit of a whistle-stop tour, but there's lots of work ongoing trying to reduce carbon emissions in a building. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Lewis?
Just one point. It should be described as CO2 rather than CO. Yeah. And you talk about air heat pumps, but you don't talk about ground Source heat pumps.
Sorry, Gary, your microphone. I'm sorry.
They are in the wide-ranging options of the total options that have been tabled. There's 5 or 6 options that they like to look at, which could be thermal stores, replace chillers, cooling towers, air sourced heat pumps, water sourced heat pumps, reusing grey water. So there's a lot of options that they're costed out at the moment. As I say, I haven't got the full details on it, but they could range from, I think some of the options here seem to be about £4.5 million worth of works to £10 or £12 million worth of work, depending on which section we selected. But yeah, it's all options on the table.
Councillor Lewis.
Sorry, if I could just follow up. The state of the boilers, what's the age of those? And because they're gas-fired and they're going to go out of service.
Yeah, the boilers currently are the Hoval. I think they're Hoval type units, aren't they? 2 sections. Yeah, they are Oval boilers. I think they've been in since the almost the start of when a building was constructed. So they are sort of getting on a bit. I think we've replaced one about 10 years ago. If we was to replace them, obviously we'd be going in like we're trying to do in some of our other locations, moving to high efficiency condensing type boilers. But again, yeah, that's an area that we could. That's one of the big issues that needs to be addressed quite quickly. The boilers are inefficient, about 65-70% efficient.
Well, it's got to be addressed because by 2030 we won't be able to use gas-fired boilers. Yeah,
that's one of the main issues we currently got. And again, it's all going to be built into this review by Deloitte. Interestingly, I've just received an invite from British Gas about they're looking at the hydrogen type gas replacement, which would work, but we're still waiting for details. It sounds quite interesting whether that is an option, particularly for some of the bigger boiler plants.
Thank you. Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Gary. This certainly is a behemoth of a building to try and manage, and I think we'd all welcome the reductions that have been illustrated in these graphs. But Councillor Lewis just mentioned there about we've got a climate action plan which we're working on, and we've got some targets to achieve by certain deadlines. I was just wondering, these reductions, are they on track with where we need to get to long term, or are we slightly off track? Because they're good reductions, but just want to sort of see, does that chime with where we're trying to get through the climate action plan?
I agree, they're good reductions, and I think as I said earlier, the trend is going the right way, but we've still got a long way to go. I can come back to the committee on the timescales for the Deloitte's report and recommendations. As I say, some of this work could take a couple of years to implement and could be quite costly, and then we need to review the options available to us. But your point, Councillor, is a good one about the boilers. They are nearing the end of their useful life, and we've got to invest to keep the building going.
Councillor Edgington.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, thanks, Gary, for that information. I'm not sure it's particularly good looking forward. It sounds a very expensive process. So the gas boilers are only used for hot water, is that right? Or
no, combined heating and hot water, and they provide primary heating to the air handling units in the roof. So it's a sort of a preheated system.
So what are the gas bills like?
Gas bills, Richard?
Yeah, our gas bills for the annually are currently around 127,000 for gas. So that's it. Seems extraordinary that the electricity consumption is so much higher, bearing in mind that the gas boilers are producing quite a lot of the heat anyway. So Do you know, Gary, there was a reduction in 2017-18, which was quite significant, and 18-19. What happened in those years which resulted in effectively a 13% reduction?
Yeah, I mean the main action we took was to replace the lighting systems on the ground and first floors, and that's had a significant impact. The next phases on the third and fourth floor we've suspended for the moment, just pending this review by others. And if we can apply the LED lighting, we still when the lights fail, we are replacing with LED. We are making sure that the lighting's on a PIR system, so they're switching off. You'll start to see it there. You know, when the area's not used, they'll switch off. So we are gradually reducing and putting the controls back into the system that were being removed over several years. So we're putting a control back in, which is having an effect. But a wholesale change of the third and fourth floor has been suspended at the moment, pending this review.
Okay, thank you. Could I ask another question? I know that within our group office, we've got a meeting room, and the thermostat just doesn't seem to work there. So we have hot, really hot. It's tropical. I think you could be growing cannabis in there, and it could be. I haven't tried, I hasten to add, but you could. I don't know how often these are all checked. Obviously, there's 700 of these units, so presumably they are checked occasionally.
Apologies for that. There are officers from our team who actually daily walk the building to identify issues, and I can assure you that'll be rectified. As I say, we've got a team of engineers in the building, because it's quite a specialist building. A team of specialist contractors who are here as well as our own engineers. So it shouldn't be a problem. We'll get that. That'll be so if it's not at the next committee meeting, then I expect to be moaned at.
Thanks. And one further point. I was. It's really quite interesting that I assume that also the fact that computer monitors have moved to LED or something similar, so that a lot less consumption from computers. That presumably also will have helped the electricity consumption over the last few years. Do you know why there was a reduction in 2021? Was that also to do with the lighting?
The main measures we were applying at the moment are lighting. There are lighting improvements. We're improving the controls of the system, so they're not on 24/7. So that's having a big impact. You're right with regards to the computers. We've all moved to laptops now. There's minimal desktop computers anymore. All high efficiency screens. So generally, the whole office environment is moving to lower energy usage. And I think in the last year, in fairness, we have had a lot of people working from home, which is having a positive impact on electric usage. Yeah.
Yeah. I think IT are also looking to move stuff away from servers internally and put them into Azure or Azure.
Yeah, they took it looking at. We've got all the main servers are in this building. They're obviously moving. They've been moving over time to the cloud, so the system will be all moved to the cloud or off-site. Again, that will have a significant another reduction on energy usage because of the cooling fans. Ventilation, etc., and the plant themselves, which would be quite high energy usage.
Thank you. Councillor Bliss.
Yeah, a few years ago we had a presentation about alternative forms of ways to produce power. One of the ones that they gave a good presentation on was using food waste to generate power, and I just wondered if that's in the plans anywhere at some stage.
Yeah, in the plans, they're mainly targeting the insulation, because obviously insulation of the building to reduce the heat load on air-to-air or water source heat pumps is a main requirement, because otherwise we just end up having to top the system up with electric heating. So insulation, they're looking at photovoltaics to offset some of the electric usage which would be required to back up the air-to-air and water sourced. And in looking at some of the ventilation systems, there's a number of heat, like with the new modern systems, there's a lot of emphasis on obviously on heat recovery, recirculating the heat to reduce your overall load. And once you combine a lot of those, it wouldn't require a complete new system to replace the old gas systems and fanned air supplies. I don't think they're looking at the options for the waste, food waste, but there are some options that we come up with in my team. We had a little bit of a brainstorming session just before Christmas, and there seems to be there's some real good technology out there at the moment about walkways that could be installed. I think they're still quite expensive where they generate electric as you move. Obviously, the double glazed windows reduce your load on the building. So there's lots to be built in to get to a stage where it's feasible for air to air or water sourced systems. But we've got quite a lot of ground around the building, so that would be quite a good method.
Councillor Lewis.
Do we have an EPC certificate for the building?
We should have. Yeah.
Sorry, just microphone, please. Sorry.
I do apologise. Yeah, we will have an EPC.
Do you know what we're rated as?
I don't offhand, but I'll see if I can find that. While we're talking, we'll get it confirmed.
This is a listed building, so there's superannuation grants. So you should be talking to the finance team about tax advantages that you can apply for listed buildings. I'm struggling to understand why you would hold up on the LED lighting for Deloitte to do their survey. To be honest,
it's just
it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's
I agree. I think what we're looking at is just a few with everyone being off site, quite a number of staff off site. It's about looking at the usage of those floors. One option may be to mothball a floor. But what I can do is I will come back with a bit more of an update on the building, because as I say, the investment for completing phase 3, which was going to be phase 3, was just under £500,000 to complete the next two phases, which would have been the third and fourth floor. So it is an investor save, and if we keep keeping those floors in operation, it is a no-brainer, really.
The generators we have, we test those on a regular basis, but they're oil powered.
Yeah, they're backed up diesel generators in the backyard, which kick in if we have a power outage.
And when was the last time we tested?
They're tested regularly. Every 3 months, I think we got a test on there. They're regularly checked for fuel. There's a constant.
If we could have an update on the last
sure.
test and the success of that, because that is fundamental. We did have some problems a few years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that we're moving to laptops. Lots of people are moving, because then presumably we don't need UPSs anymore.
No, that's the thing. We have got there is still UPS backup on some of the main servers.
Yeah, sure.
But as we move away from the main servers being in the building to the cloud and other locations, then our reliance on that is a lot less. But the generators are regularly checked, regularly operated, and they do kick in on occasions. Touch wood, we haven't had any recently. So
I've always thought that actually one of the big failings of this building is that we've only got one three-phase power source into the building.
That's one of the issues. I will come back to you on that, because I think we've found that we've got two, because the local electricity board, local electricity company, SEC. Yeah. They've come back, and we've got two suppliers, because last year before we had failure, and they diverted the power input into the building. But
but we've only got one power input.
Yeah, it appears to be one power input into one side, and the second there may be a second. I will come back to you on that. I'll clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Bliss, sorry, I'll come back to you. I didn't know if you had a follow-up on your... No, okay. Councillor Edgington.
Yeah, I was going to ask, Gareth, do you have separate metering of different parts of the building so that you're able to identify where power is being used? So at the moment you've given us a full amount, but clearly there are lots of different phases and different sections of the building.
Yeah.
Some of it which is effectively being sublet, I think, at times, isn't it? Or used for other purposes. So do you have a breakdown of exactly where?
We've got. I think we get one bill for the whole building, don't we? Metered supply. I think I've just answered my own question. Your question there. One supply in. I'm just trying to rack my memory as to why we had a second supply run. But yeah, it's one meter supply serving the whole building. But I need to come back on that. Shame Dave couldn't be here today. He's the service manager, so he would have the answer straight off.
Yeah, it seems to make sense to be able to identify where all the uses of such a large amount or such significant level of expenditure. Yeah. And the other point I was going to ask, which probably Richard can answer, relates to going forward the likely electricity costs. I think beforehand we talked about a contract coming to an end at some stage, and can you give us some indication of when that's likely to be, and on what basis, when the price was fixed last, I suppose, as well, so you can compare it.
Yeah, our current energy contracts are with Laser, and they commenced in April 2020, and that runs through till 2024, and then there's an option to extend for a further year. So currently our sort of procurement strategy or energy buying strategy within that is Laser use a purchase in advance strategy. So that means that for the current financial year, the energy would have been purchased in advance of that. So they would have purchased the energy over a period of time, typically a year to 18 months, and then that price is fixed for that year. So that's why for the current year, although we've seen a lot of in the news about increased energy costs, currently the council's not been impacted in this financial year because our rates are fixed until the 31st of March 2022. Unfortunately, from the 1st of April, we will be getting our new prices, and we have had some indications from Laser about the increases for the forthcoming year. So currently, they're advising us that electricity is due to increase by 35.78%, 36%, and then for gas, the increase is actually 66%. So I think for the Civic Centre for 2022-23, well, 2020-21, you know, our expenditure was 521,000. So we're projecting that in 2022-23, it's going to be up at 763,000.
Does that include the electricity as well? Because it's
that's the electricity cost.
Does it include? It doesn't include the gas. So the gas is on top of that.
Gas is separate. So I can get you a figure for gas. So current year 2021-22, I think we're projecting. Sorry, I said 127 off the top of my head. I've got 125 here, 125k, and then for 2022-23, based on the increase, we're looking at 208,000. So yeah, significant increase.
So it's virtually £1 million, not far short of £1 million to light and heat the building.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Lewis.
It sounds like you've done a really good deal with Laser, but do we keep on checking their creditworthiness? Because a lot of these companies, particularly buying forward, are they buy forward and then they can't actually get the energy that they've been promised. So, and a lot of them, they reckon that eventually we'll get down to about 6 companies in the country.
So you're correct. That has been highlighted about some of these smaller energy firms that have gone into the market to offer cheap prices and then unfortunately have not hedged sufficiently. But Laser are one of the largest public sector buying organisations. They've got a good track record, and I personally am confident that that we won't be in that situation with Laser and our suppliers. We currently use Empower and Corona Energy. Empower for electricity and Corona for gas.
Okay, thanks very much, Gary. I think that, Richard, thank you, is very, very useful. I think what would be handy is obviously a couple of bits to take away, and if Liz, if we can just follow up on those outstanding parts, we can feed those in, then we get them circulated back to the committee. I think that's probably easier rather than you coming back physically. We can do that as a note to go out to members.
Chair, I'll get them added for the minutes, hopefully tomorrow or Friday.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Brings us on to agenda item 7, which is the Cabinet Forward Plan. Just to mention to members that the review we completed into performance monitoring is due to go to Cabinet in February, so a couple of weeks' time. So that will be something for us to look out for, and our recommendations that were agreed in that report will be presented to Cabinet on the 17th of February. Can I have any questions or comments on the rest of the forward plan? No? I'm happy to note that. Agenda item 8 is the work programme. So the next meeting is on the 2nd of March. Just to note on this, slight variation in terms of the work programme that's published. We were due to have a past review delivery of the homophobic, biphobic and transphobic bullying review. From conversations we've had with officers, there is no real further update since the last update we had. This was Dan Kennedy came and spoke to us, and a lot of the work here was related to work that the council were doing with schools. Given the up and down nature of student attendance at school and education from home, it hasn't been something that has progressed as would have liked in normal circumstances, so there's no real significant update. What we will bring instead to March is an update on the voluntary sector response. Again, from the report that this committee completed last year and was presented to Cabinet with recommendations, Kevin Byrne is going to return to give us an update in terms of where we've gone so far. Obviously, pandemic is still very much with us. So that's going to be an indication in terms of what those recommendations have, how far they've been implemented so far, and what additional support and help has been provided to the voluntary sector. And then just the other item that we have within next meeting is on corporate communications, which is something that committee members have requested. And I have any comments on those? Are we happy with that, Councillor Richardson?
Not specifically on that, but I see the April meeting, we've got nothing really planned at all. I wonder whether it would be possible to have an update on a couple of issues. Well, one in particular, which is Hillingdon Outdoor Activity Centre and the rebuilding of that, because it seems to have been going on forever and I'm not sure anything's been achieved yet. It keeps on being shown in the capital budget, but and I found it in 1819, the capital budget then. It was meant to be completed 2 years ago, or a year ago at least. So nothing. It would be useful to know what exactly is happening.
Okay, I think let's take that away, Liz, and see firstly that it fits within us, if it comes under the property element for HOAC. But yeah, and then we can get if possible, then we can get an update in terms of what progress is at, who the different stakeholders are, and where any possible delays are and the blockers, how they can potentially be resolved to get the facility up and going. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. A short meeting this evening, everybody. Thank you for your attendance. I'll bring the meeting to a close. Thank you to everyone watching online as well.